So if you're here from TikTok, go ahead and feel free to skip to this part of the video. This is when I go ahead and start discussing team-ups, costumes, and kind of my final thoughts on his playstyle and everything along those lines. How would it work in Marvel Rivals? Yo, so my name is Gojibu. I am a tank player who's been playing Marvel Rivals recently, and I have been loving the game overall. I love doing these character pitches. I got a bunch of them over on TikTok, so if you guys are interested in that, feel free to go ahead and take a peek. But this is my pitch for what Invincible might look like in Marvel Rivals, and just getting right into it, of course I had to make him a DPS. I feel like there's not a lot of other angles you can take him at, and if I did continue this series with other Invincible characters, I feel like there are a lot that fit into the Vanguard and support role a lot better than Invincible possibly could. Made him a 280 HP DPS, which I feel like is great on the beefier end for DPS, and his passive plays into it. I gave him Smart Atoms / Equilibrium. So when not engaged in combat, Invincible will begin to rapidly recover health after 10 seconds, and the second part, Equilibrium, headshots while Invincible is engaged in Flight Hustle will slow him down and make him lose some height. So again, this is just a good way to keep in mind his weakness along with the regeneration factor that he has, which does get crazy a little bit later. And I did want to add, there is some slight spoilers for Invincible. I'm going to try not to spoil it too much, but there are some spoilers here when we do get into the costumes and the cosmetics of this. As for his mobility, I gave him free flight. I wanted to give him the verticality of Storm, Iron Man. I feel like Marvel Rivals, I've said it multiple times, has enough verticality to where you don't really have to worry about these characters flying all over the map. There's enough counters for these guys floating around, and I feel like there's more than enough, especially to the point where they will have crossover characters. There'll be enough to kind of fill up the roster and help with the flyers. For his primary fire, I gave him a melee combo called Terran Knockout. It's 50 damage on each hit, a 4-hit combo, and on the last hit, Invincible would deal 80 damage and knock back the enemies. This is a good way for him to get in the face of the enemy and not doing too much damage, but again, that 4th hit, you might want to save that until you do have an opening. But he would be a brawler. I imagine he wouldn't hit super fast until he activates his second ability, but we'll get into that in a second. Then for his alternate fire, I gave him something called It Kind of Tickles. It's on a 10-second cooldown. Invincible rapidly swats his right hand in front of him, deflecting any projectiles for 2 seconds. So the 10-second cooldown is a good way to balance that out, kind of like Genji's deflect from Overwatch. Again, Mark usually does this in his media, so I feel like it's nothing too crazy, nothing too outlandish. Then for his second ability, I gave him Pre-Flight Hustle, and this is on a 5-second cooldown. So Invincible greatly accelerates his movement speed, and while he's doing this, crashing into any enemies during this increase will result in 40 damage. So again, this is a good way for him to kind of sweep the area. I imagine he wouldn't be able to attack during this just because he does have that advanced flight speed there. But again, that caveat is the passive there, Equilibrium. If you get headshot while you're doing this, you'll immediately slow down and you will lose a little bit of your height. It kind of, again, just playing into that whole equilibrium, the weakness the Viltrumites have there. Then for his second ability, I gave him a self buff called Adrenaline Rush on a 12-second cooldown. Invincible fortifies himself, taking 40% reduced damage and getting an attack speed boost for 7 seconds. So again, this is kind of the way to get in, start doing damage. If you see a backliner, if you kind of want to start brawling with a tank or you see a good opportunity, this is where you kind of go crazy, jump in, and this is where just Mark gets to go crazy and just start wailing on whoever's right in front of him. Then for his ultimate, I gave him something called Scatter Meteor. Scatter Meteor targets the ground. Invincible stomps the ground in front of him, launching up a large chunk of earth that creates cover for his team for a brief moment, before delivering devastating punches to the chunk of earth, sending out damaging chunks of rock in a straight area in front of him. Enemies targeting the rock can deteriorate it completely or shatter it if it sustains enough damage. So I figure that the dev way to do this would probably be to give the earth chunk an HP pool, kind of like a Magneto shield or something along those lines, where enemies can start shooting at it, but it will kind of nullify anything that comes in for a little bit. This is kind of just a good multi-use ultimate. It'll kind of, give your team cover to hide behind for a little bit, and it also does play into Mark's aggression there. I don't know how that would stack with the Adrenaline Rush. I don't think he'd start shooting the meteor pieces out faster if you activate it after doing your ultimate. I think it'd kind of just be a stand there, and Mark kind of just has to wail on that meteor for a little bit until it's completely deteriorated. But either way, I kind of wanted to give him something that has a little bit more utility than just, a tackle and then immediate single target ability. As for his team-ups, I wanted to give him a couple with the Avengers that he did see in his, one little comic book appearance there. I called it Friendly Face. So anytime he's with Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, or Wolverine, he gets a passive, and so do they. Seeing former heroes he can vaguely recall meeting, Invincible and the other heroes bolster each other's fighting spirit, granting each other a damage boost. So that's the more boring of the two team-ups. This one I'm a little bit more excited for. This one is called Wrecking Ball Special, and it would be with the Hulk and the Thing, along with any other kind of big, more monster-type heroes that could add it to the game. So maybe MODOK as a Vanguard, or maybe somebody like Vision who can increase his density or something along those lines. Really just, you know, any hero that's a little bit on the heavier side, maybe Blob if they get him in, but either way. Invincible can pick up either tank and carry them, throwing them for a damaging impact at the enemy. And this would have a 30-second cooldown. I forgot to add it here, but he would get a speed penalty if he is carrying the tanks, of course. But I wanted to kind of do a fun little inversion on the fastball special. Again, Hulk and the Thing can chuck Wolverine, and it's something they really like to do. But I feel like it would be a really fun role reversal to have a DPS who can throw the tanks at the enemy team. And again, Mark is one of the stronger characters, especially if they did crossovers that they could add to this game. So I feel like this would just be a really fun dynamic, along with some really fun voice lines, because again, Hulk and Thing aren't used to getting picked up and thrown around like that. So then, of course, for his costumes, I have the blue and black suit that he's currently wearing while I'm filming this in this Invincible season. I think this is season 3 that we're in. But yeah, I love the black and blue suit. It's I think the creator's even gone on to say that it's kind of his equivalent of the symbiote suit for Spider-Man. So I feel like that's something that they have to have as, you know, just an immediate alternate costume and one of the easier ones to work with. And then as far as his other costumes, I wanted to include his more standout ones. And again, this is going to have spoilers for the, you know, I don't know if it's already going to be out at this point, but the upcoming Invincible arc. So if you guys don't want spoilers on that, feel free to go ahead and click off at this point, or, you know, forward to this point in the video. But Sinister Mark, Viltrumite Mark, and Omni Mark are all suits that I would greatly want for him, just because, again, I feel like it would be really awesome to have those alternate suits, and I just think so much love was put into the design of these that it'd be a waste to see them, you know, just not end up in the game, especially if they go through all the trouble of getting the rights to do a crossover and everything like that. And then the final costume I have here is a Sentry or Hyperion crossover. Maybe they could call it a cosplay or something along those lines, but I feel like they're pretty in line with what Mark is used to seeing, his more colorful hero costume. Again, they're all based off of, you know, pre-existing superheroes. But again, I feel like a Sentry or Hyperion design, or him cosplaying as one of them, would be really fun, especially with a twist on the goggles or something like that. Maybe he could call it, you know, something snappy, but either way, I'd love to see a crossover with either of those, along with just maybe a symbiote Mark or something along those lines. His take on what the symbiote might look like if it were to cover Invincible. But again, wishful thinking. Either way, a symbiote Mark would also be really sick to see, but I really don't know what that would look like. But I'll leave it to MarvelRivals, because they always cook with this sort of stuff. Then for my final thoughts on him, I really just did want to make a DPS that can get up in their face, and a free-flying one especially, one that can pick up the pace, one that can move around. He is a little bit harder to kill, but I feel like that would coincide pretty well with, you know, the dive sort of comp, and I feel like that's ultimately where he would accelerate. Because again, he can back off, he can use his free flight hustle to get away, but ultimately if somebody gets a headshot, somebody gets a lucky hit on him, that is going to slow him down, that is going to make him, you know, unable to retreat for a good bit. And more than anything, he can get in their face, but again, unless you find a straggler, unless you find somebody who's knowingly breaking formation, you might not be able to get too much done with him. So yeah, he can dive in, he can, you know, get the damage reduction, he can do the adrenaline rush, everything like that. He does have the regeneration, but again, I feel like it takes so long to kick in. 10 seconds is nothing to sneeze at, especially in MarvelRivals. Everything moves so much quicker than in other games I've played of the hero shooter genre. I feel like 10 seconds is more than enough time for him to back off, kind of get some breathing room, and again, give the enemy team breathing room more than anything, because this guy would just be an absolutely oppressive monster, kind of like Iron Fist, but even to a crazier degree. But again, yeah, this is my pitch for Invincible. I want to keep doing some more of these what if type videos. I do have normal style videos for what I feel like, you know, the upcoming Marvel characters might look like in on my TikTok here. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to go ahead and look over there. I wanted to upload them on YouTube Shorts, but they are a little bit too long for YouTube Shorts. But either way, if you guys are interested in this, want to see more of these, by all means, let me know. I do want to do maybe Battle Beast or Omni-Man. They're definitely one of my favorites from the Invincible verse, but either way, if you guys have any other what if type characters, or you guys do have any feedback on the, you know, the pitch I have here, by all means, feel free to let me know in the comments. Otherwise, peace.